Are you a liar? Now, we don't normally think of ourselves as liars, but I reckon that if you sit really honestly with yourself, the answer is yes. Like, really stop for a minute and think, how many times have you lied just today? How many times did you not say something that you kind of know is true and you think you should have said because it would have been easier or it wouldn't have hurt someone's feelings? Or how many times did you say something to try and get someone else to think or do something that you wanted? You lie all the time, and I think if you truly knew the depth to which you lie, you would vomit all over the floor. I've certainly had that sort of realization. It is shocking. And don't think I'm sitting here being some kind of high and mighty judge. I'm a dirty, dirty, cheating liar too. And I don't think of myself as a liar. I'm a pretty honest person. But a pretty honest person isn't a 100%ly truthful person. A pretty honest person still tells lies, and I still do tell lies, even though I've made a commitment to myself not to do that anymore. Because I've never really thought of myself as a liar. Rather, I'll tell the truth, and then if I need something to go a certain way, or I don't want to feel a certain way, or if I'm afraid of something, then I'll just spin things in a way that makes sure that, I get what I want and I get my needs met. But that's still lying. And I've come to realize that a lot of my anxiety comes from not telling the truth or being afraid to face the truth because I'm afraid of what I think the other person might do or say or how they might react. And so I don't tell the truth sometimes, or I work myself up in a tizzy and get anxious about it because I'm taking responsibility for someone else's feelings and I'm imagining how they could react or how I might react. There's a great quote, I can't remember where it's from. I did a little bit of a Google, and it's basically, I am afraid to show you myself because if I show you myself and you don't like it, that's all I have. You see how vulnerable it actually takes and how vulnerable it actually is to be truthful all the time. You really have to show yourself. And I struggle still with being vulnerable. I recognize fear, that fear of being authentic and genuine and vulnerable in my needs and what I want, as coming from a very young place. There's a very young part of me who wasn't able or allowed to say certain things or act in certain ways. Don't be loud, don't say this, don't do that, be a good boy. And I still carry that with me, and I'm still inhibited in that way. And so, whenever I'm presented with a situation where I'm aware enough to see if I'm going to lie or not, and I do choose to lie, the voice comes up in me and it goes, no, don't do that. Make sure you don't do that, because then they'll actually know what you think. Then they'll really react to you and they'll really be angry with you, and you won't be able to take that. So I'll lie. And now I've lied about all sorts of things in my life. I've lied about awards that I have that I didn't really have. I've lied about things being done that haven't really been done. I've even lied about liking romantic partners that I didn't really like. But recently I've been in healing spaces, recovery spaces, and I've come to learn that the only person who gets hurt when I lie is myself. My lying is supposed to protect me. And there was a time in my life when it did. There was a time in my life when that behavior helped keep me alive and keep me safe. But I'm an adult now. I'm big enough and I'm strong enough and I'm capable enough to look after my own needs and to face the truth of situations. And if I am not doing something that somebody else wants me to do, I can deal with that. Or if someone else isn't doing something that I want them to do, I can deal with that too. I'm an adult. I can take responsibility for this and I can look after myself. I don't need to lie anymore. So I'd like to give you an example of me doing this recently. The other day, I was at a friend's birthday party, and almost everybody there was somebody that I didn't know. And I've noticed that when I meet people for the first time, my people pleasing tendencies really kick in. It's like, I really want you to like me, so I'm going to make sure I'm extra nice and only show my good sides kind of behavior. And so, there was this moment where we were going around the circle, we were telling stories about some weird stuff that had happened to us, and I was sharing my story. It was going well, people were listening, I felt really heard. And then at some points, the strangest thing happened. I just lied. I told a blatant lie. It was really strange because I was telling this story and then I just saw those words come out of my mouth that were patently untrue. And then, of course, I had to double down on it. Well, I chose to double down on it. And so I told a little bit more and I embellished a little bit more. And then, of course, people asked me questions about the specific part that I had lied about. So, I didn't want to lie anymore, so I sort of brushed it off and let the conversation fall into something else. But that was one of the first times where I was so aware of just lying for no reason as well. There was no reason. I only lied because I wanted them to like me. And so a few minutes later, I excused myself, I went to the bathroom and I did some reflection. The bathroom is a great place for reflecting. And I really thought, why did I lie there? And how do I feel about that? Because I felt awful. I felt guilty and ashamed and embarrassed. I felt really guilty of having lied to these new people who they don't know any better. I'm brand new to them, they're brand new to me. And I asked myself a very powerful question, which is, what do I want this relationship with these new people to be? What do I want my relationship with these new people to be? Do I want it to be based on a lie? And the answer was no. So I plucked up my courage. I left the bathroom and, everyone was sort of still in the circle. We were about to do something else. And I said, guys, before we do this next thing, I need to tell you something really embarrassing. So everybody stopped and I said, I lied to you. I was telling you that story a few minutes ago and I made up this part. The rest of it was true, but I got carried away and I wanted you to like me and think I was cool, so I made up that little bit. And I'm really sorry for that, and I feel really embarrassed and ashamed. Now, there was this moment of silence that was probably a lot longer for me than it actually was. But I was really lucky that I was in a very receptive group, a very kind group of people who, someone spoke up a few seconds later and was like, oh, well, thank you for telling, man. I appreciate you being honest with me. And then someone else said, don't worry about it, dude, but thank you for telling me. And then, many people in the group went around and expressed their gratitude at me having been honest with them. And I felt better. I still felt guilty and ashamed for having lied. I don't believe in lying. I am someone who commits to tell the truth and to stand in truth all of the time. But I still lie. I'm a human being. And releasing that, being honest with that, facing that, helped me feel so much better, so relieved. And even if they had judged me or rejected me or not, it really changed the dynamic of the relationship. I chose to tell the truth for myself. So they could have done whatever they wanted and I would have been, I would have felt how I would have felt about that. I would have felt hurt and rejected. But I would have been okay because I was truthful. The real relationship comes after the conflict, as my therapist is fond of saying, and I think is just a beautiful sentiment. And this principle of telling the truth, always being a stand for truth, I think is fundamental to recovery and your healing journey. And I still catch myself telling lies. I'll lie. Well, I lied at work the other day about something being done, and I thought, I felt the rift it created between me and my manager. Now, it was something I wanted to have done, and that I then promptly did, but I felt that rift. Or I lied to my work crush about having group therapy because I didn't want to share that in case she thought that was weird. When, if I want this person to know who I am, I should probably be honest about something like that. Because those lies really eat me up inside, and I really feel it, the shame and the guilt. It builds up, and then I feel anxious because I'm not in truth. And even small little insignificant lies, I find that I have to correct them. I have to tell the truth because otherwise I'm carrying that with me and I'll be carrying that forever. And imagine getting all the lies you've told in your entire life, shoving them into you all over here, and then carrying that with you. You probably know how that feels right now, and it doesn't feel good. And it's even the case with smaller lies as well. I forgot how to put contact lenses in. So I went to my optician, I got taught how to do it, and she very kindly called me up the next day and she said, "Hey Lewis, have you got your contact lenses in?" And at that specific moment that she called, I didn't. Now, I had planned to do it later in that day because I was going out, I was going to do these things. But rather than being honest with her, I said, yes, I do. And she was like, oh, great. And even that, can you see how that's not true? And even if it's not hurting anybody, even if it's very insignificant, I was going to put them in later. I did indeed put them in later. I'd already practiced that evening again when I came back putting them in. So I matched the sentiment of what she was saying, but it still wasn't true. And I'm trying even not to do that in my life. What I wish I'd said was, hey, optician lady, that's her name. Uh, um, I haven't put them in today. I put them in again last night, and I am going to put them in later, and because I want to do that. And she probably would have been all right with that as well. So if you're going to be someone who really stands in truth, you're going to have to be honest, even in those little situations where it might be so much easier just to tell a lie. And you know what I haven't even begun talking about is how much you lie to yourself. Every single time that you lie to another person, you are lying to yourself. And do you deserve to be lied to? Like, think back to yourself as a little 4-year-old. Does that child deserve to be lied to? Because that's what you're doing. You are the guardian of child you, which is still you, by the way. And you need to look after yourself like that. You don't deserve to be lied to. You owe that to yourself. And then as we come to the end, I'm just going to say that for the sake of nuance, obviously I'm not saying that being in truth all the time means that you don't lie. And I'm not condoning anyone running around blurting the truth out just willy-nilly. That's a very immature way of understanding what I'm saying. Because sometimes you can choose to lie. I'll give you 2 examples. A small example is if you're planning a surprise party for your partner. Maybe you tell them a little white lie and they can kind of feel something's not going on, but you don't want to spoil the surprise. You could choose to do that. That's a lie, but you could choose to do that, and then it makes the surprise nicer. Or a bigger example, let's say you've been kidnapped by terrorists and you know the location of someone and they want it from you, but you're not going to tell them. So you're lying. But is that the wrong thing to do? So I think what I'm really making the point is there's no right or wrong. You don't always have to tell the truth. You don't always have to lie. There is no right or wrong here. It's about doing what feels right for you. And that's the principle here. You've got to be fearless in being you and doing what feels right for you. And you won't always get the outcome that you want, but at least you know when you reflect upon it, even if you didn't do the right thing in hindsight, that you did what was truthful and right for you. And that's all that you can really hope for. And so I challenge you to notice how much you lie. Notice, even just for today, How many times did you lie? How many times have you not shared the truth about how you're feeling or been honest with someone because you wanted them to react a certain way? And notice how that feels. How does that feel in you? Noticing is the first step in any recovering, healing, or change process. And I would go so far as to say that a life lived in integrity with truth is a healed life. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then it would mean a lot to me if you could hit like and subscribe, because it really helps the channel out. I wish you all the best on your healing journey, and I'll see you again soon.